Hello, one and all, and welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat. My name is Mitch Pattinson, and we're always joined by Ethan Duffy. And of course, today we are previewing Carlton v St Kilda, round 21, Sunday 3:20 at Marvel Stadium. As I just said, it's a bit of a elimination final type game because I think, in my opinion, the loser is not going to play finals this year. But first things first, Duffy boy, more importantly, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Obviously, most of the week, you think about Carlton games. Obviously, we've moved on from the great victory last week, and we have to move on, don't we? In 2 days' time, we're facing the Saints at Marvel, which, I guess it is a danger game, but I guess they are fifth on the ladder, so they are above us. So we can't take them lightly. I don't think we can ever take them lightly in any year, any season. Doesn't matter what position they're in. They somehow get up for us. And Tim Membro somehow fucking recovers from some injury and he comes back that week every single time. But apart from that, no, I'm feeling good. And obviously I trust the team, but I'm a bit shattered with injuries. They're kind of frustrating me. And I guess another talking point, that we can probably touch on is the whole strength and conditioning. What the fuck is going on down there at Carlton? Because it could really derail another season. And if it does, eyes have to go to Andrew Russell, or is the fucking deck at Icon Park too hard or something? I don't know. People always talk about that. There's something about it. There's something must be happening. I don't know what it is. It's soft tissue. It's just, knee injuries are different, but soft tissue seems to be a common occurrence all year. And, it's with younger players too, like Chair and Walsh. And it's a bit of odd, but looking forward to it. A bit nervous. I'm more nervous for this than the Collingwood game. I can't believe it, but yeah, I'm more nervous for this game.
Wow. I know I was kind of going into the Collingwood game just because it's Collingwood, but I do see what you mean just because we are expected to win this game, and this is the real test. This is what we've been saying ever since we beat Collingwood is, we've just done something absolutely fantastic, of course. Leave that aside. This is the test. This week is the test against St Kilda, who a lot of the Carlton supporters know we aren't great against them. And I know that the last time we beat them was 2021 in the COVID season, but I know in the past decade, we have not been great. And probably in this century alone, we haven't been great against them. But of course, they've been a little bit of a better side around the 2010 region. But as you said, a few points there is how St Kilda is fifth on the ladder with a percentage of 106. Giants is the next one at who's sixth on the ladder with 102%, and we're seventh with 116%. So out of that bottom four of the top eight, which is St Kilda, Giants, Carlton, and Western Bulldogs, we have by far the best percentage. So it's a touching point because if we can just get this game, that percentage will help us 100%. And we know last year it didn't really help us, but no. And just very quickly about the injuries, I completely agree, and there has to be something going on at Icon Park where it's and even the injuries this week. Adam Chera, I mean, I know that we will touch on the injuries in a little bit more depth later on, but Adam Chera, 2 to 3 weeks, hamstring. Mitch McGovern, 2 to 3 weeks, hamstring. The exact same. Like, what is that about?
Calves and hamstrings. It happened all year.
It is unbelievable.
Apart from Harry missing with the knee, I think the other injuries have been soft tissue.
Yeah. I think it's like just mainly like cars and all that, which is it's actually unbelievable when you think about it. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think there has to be some sort of someone needs to blame for this because it's not like it is an ACL injury where it's Zach Williams or a Harry Mackay or a Sam Philp or even an Alex Murkoff with those sorts of injuries. They're different, but when they're soft tissue, yes, they're injuries. Yes, there's a little bit of luck with it as well, but there's also like soft tissue injuries. That's why you have, I guess, a person there to take care of that, a medical team around you to make sure that you're doing the right rehab. And that's something that Andrew Russell, ever since he's come to the club, he's been great at Hawthorn. But ever since he's come to the club, there's been questions around that. And we're not saying that he's the problem, but there is someone to blame. Whether it's the players not doing the correct rehab, that's another conversation. But we know that there is something going on in the club that the people aren't professional enough to actually because these are key players. They're key players.
Yeah.
Like Chera is our best player, and we know how great Mitch McGovern has been the past few weeks, being that, I guess, leader down back. It's key. So we'll now transition into, I guess, the more game sense. So to get things started off straight away, Duffy Boy, what is your favourite moment against the St Kilda Saints?
There's a few. I think we're actually much better against them when they were really good. I think around that 2010 mark, we were pretty good against them around those years. I think recently, obviously, we haven't been great against many sides, but I think we've just really struggled to really, every time we play them at Marvel, there seems to be something lingering around and we just can't beat them. We just cannot beat them. I know we beat them in the Charlie Kerner return game in COVID, but there's something about when the Saints create out of the air, and it's just, there's always a bad energy when you go to Marvel against the Saints. And for me, I think this weekend will definitely change that. I think, the momentum heading into this game from us, they've knocked over some teams who aren't particularly fantastic over the last few weeks. They showed some glimpses of good footy against the Hawks, credit to them. But, I'll just go back to the moment. I think, obviously, the throwback Thursday was Walks kicking that goal to win.
Was a defender. Now's the chance to prove his bona fides as a forward. We all know the pressure. And how has he coped with it? That's how he's coped with it. Carlton back in front. But it ain't over yet.
That's one major moment in my life that I can clearly remember everything that happened in that last probably 5 minutes. I was sitting up the top deck and I was sitting right behind it. I remember it was obviously my family, and then there was these Saint supporters like across from us, up and about. And I remember Walks took the mark. I couldn't watch the kick. I remember I was like, had me head and hands, and I looked up, like you go for like a little, like this, and you look out, and then the ball's gone through. And I was like, going off my tits, and you could see the St Kilda supporters absolutely shattered, because it was a really good game of footy. I remember it was one of those Monday night games we used to play them on in the 2010s. I think it was like 4 years we played them on Monday nights, which I loved it. It was a different type of game, and that was a big one too with the M&M jumpers.
Yeah, I reckon we need to. I reckon we need to bring them back because they were actually fantastic. But I know that, especially with the Carlton St Kilda rivalry, and as you said, it was always a Monday night clash, which I always love, because my family are kind of St Kilda and Carlton, so pretty much the whole family, like, we're pretty much either St Kilda or Carlton. So great. And then I can remember always Monday, I was always able to have the day off every single time. And I was like, yes, Carlton being starts next week. I get to have school off. I think I was in primary school at the time, of course, for that Andrew Walker moment. But that was a fantastic moment. But as we've said, I think there's a few moments that has been seen against the St Kilda Football Club. But I think what I will go with, it's a little bit more of a recent moment, and I think it's going to be Mark Murphy's banana.
Loose it wide, Murphy. Wise head with the banana, as good as it's ever got for Murph. To put him in front, Dwayno.
I was there that day, and it was just that. I reckon in that 2017, 18, 19 period, that was probably the most fun I have had actually being at the football. Because that was when I started to get a little bit more invested into the club, and I was just having the absolute time of my life, and I absolutely loved every single time Carlton will play in the MCG. Through that, in that day sort of game where it's a red footy, it's a Oh, it was just, and the commentary as well. I just reckon it was fantastic. But of course, Harry Mackay was also one of those moments as well. And
that Gibbons, Murphy backed in the Cripps direction, couldn't collect it. Mackay does. That's bending. How's the physics of that?
On that day, that kicked a ripping goal. But we'll now move on to a milestone, which is, of course, Lockie Fogarty, which is, of course, playing his 50th game this week, which is it's pleasing to see how great he has been in the last few weeks. And I know that we both agree with this, and he's by far an absolute lock in the best 22 at the moment with the form he's producing. But, Dave, how important is Lockie Fogarty to the structure?
No, he's massive, and credit to him. I'd imagine he would have been thinking, he might have had to look elsewhere at year's end, or maybe play at a lower level of footy. But the way he's come back into the team, he plays a position a role where it's unrewarding. Really, it is an unrewarding role that is massive for our team. And you see with every good team, they have those players, and you go, oh, he averages 10. Disposal of the game, or, a goal or half a goal a game. But then it's just those moments where he needs to lay a tackle, or those little hands, or, you know what I mean? It's just, it's an unrewarded role. And I think he will end up being rewarded for it at year's end with a contract. So credit to him. He's important to us. And yeah, like you said, he's currently in the best 22 mix. I think he's definitely ahead of a few others just due to what he brings off the ball. He's just, I don't know, there's something about it. He's not a superstar, but he plays within his strengths. And I think a lot of players are starting to play within their strengths and not overdo it. Don't try to take on too much. You know where you can bring that.
Yep, spot on. Couldn't agree more. So now we'll move on to a little bit more of the cons of the whole game this week. And of course, there's a few things that we've of course seen with this week where we're not that great against St Kilda, but this is probably going to make it even worse. And it's two crucial injuries that we've touched on, of course, earlier in the episode, but we're now going to go into a little bit more depth into them. So, which is of course the two outs this week, which is Adam Chera. 2 to 3 weeks hamstring injury. We already knew that. I think we knew that when we did the review episode for Collingwood. But the other injury, which is mind-boggling to me, it's come out through training. Another training injury, which is quite funny to see how many injuries we're getting through training. Like, it's not even match day; it's actually through training. And it's Mitch McGovern, and 2 to 3 weeks hamstring injury. So. Out of these two, Daffy Boy, I know how you feel about these two injuries, how crucial they are. They potentially could be season-ending injuries, maybe home and away. Of course, I think they'll be back for finals if we do make it, but they could be season-ending injuries. What are your thoughts on especially Mitch McGovern's injury, and how big of an impact this will have on our structure moving forward to try and maybe make a finals bid?
Yeah, obviously with these two names, they're pivotal parts. Why is it always the most pivotal players as well? It's really fucking me off right now.
Yeah,
it's not some guy who's just come in for the VFL, and I'm not wishing on anyone, but it's always the best fucking players. It's costing us big time, and that's why I don't really see why we're so massive. Well, we're not massive favourites, but people are always talking us up. I'd imagine there'd be 30% of our best 22-esque players not playing. So, with Ches and Gav, obviously, in my opinion, I think Ches ultimately won us the game in that first half. I think if he wasn't playing in that first half, we would have not struggled, but we wouldn't have had that dominance that we had. I think he had 20 by halftime, which is crazy stuff. And with Gav, it's just, for me, it's more frustrating for him because he's been playing really well, and we've backed him in, playing that intercept role or that defensive role, and he's been playing really well, and he's a part of that back six who have been probably our best part of our game. I think the defense has been the best part of our game for the longest part of the year, and really stood up even in that 6-game losing streak. So the only good thing is now we've got Marchbank fit and he's in the side, so I think he can step up and take that Gov role, or just play his own role, because they're very similar roles in my opinion. And I think we've got enough guys that can cover it. I think you got obviously you got Weeders, Kempy and Marchie as their kind of tools, and then you got other guys in there as well. So I think we can cover it off. But really, it depends what the Saints are going to bring, because I think they've got Tim Membry, Max King, and Jack Hayes chances to play out. I don't know if all of them will play, in my opinion. I don't think all of them will come in. There'd be a bit of an odd to bring all those three tools in. But, the Saints, they're unpredictable.
Yeah, well, it's actually a good way to kind of sum up the Saints, because we know that the past probably, other than last week, the past probably month, they haven't been playing finals football, top 8 football whatsoever. But last week, I know they were playing against Hawthorn, but of course, they have to get form the week before we play them.
Yeah.
Of course, they have to get the form the week before we play them. That's exactly what we wanted. But as we always say, you always want your opponents at their best because there's no excuses. Yeah. So this week it's another challenge. But yeah, I mean, well said about kind of, I guess, summing up the Saints with their unpredictability. But I know we'll now move on to the extended squad. So, of course, right now we are filming this at 11:30 on Friday morning. So this will be released on Saturday morning. So I know when this will be released, we will already know who's in and who's out. So we're just going to very quickly go through the extended squad. And we're also going to name who we think we might bring in. So, of course, the ins is Jackson Binns, Josh Honey, Ed Curnow, Sammy Durden, and Zach Fisher. So they're our 5 ins. And, of course, the outs, as we've just touched on, is Adam Chera and Mitch McGovern. And just one more comment before I move to you, Daff, is Michael Voss has stated through his press conference through the week that Paddy Dow is confirmed for the best 22. So we know that he is going to play this week. So he's probably going to be that replacement for Adam Chera. But out of those 5, out of Jackson Binns, Josh Honey, Ed Curnow, Sammy Durden, and Zach Fisher, Daffy Boy, who do you reckon is going to be brought in to maybe fill the void, I guess, for an Adam Chera structure-wise, and also Mitch McGovern?
Yeah, it's tough. You look at these names and they're all over the place, in my opinion. I just don't really know. It's a really hard players to pick. Obviously, you go through it. Obviously, Binns, me personally, I think he's playing really, really good footy, and I think he can come in. Josh Honey, no. Just going to rule that out straight away. Ed Curnow is an interesting one. It's been a talk. We've talked about him a lot this year, haven't we, Pato? It's like, we want him to come in and play a role. If he's in the side, I want him to play a role, whether it's fucking, you're tagging their best halfback, whether it's a Sinclair or something like that, or he goes in the middle or tags one of their mids, you know what I mean? Like, if he comes in for a certain role, I don't mind it. Sam Durden, I think that's more an emergency in case a key back comes out late. And then Zach Fisher's the one who's, you just don't know. I just really don't know. But I'll narrow it down and I'll just pull out 2 names, and I think it's going to be a debutant this week against the Saints. I think Jackson Binns deserves it, in my opinion. He's had over 30 last 5 weeks. I'm not sure what else he's supposed to really do. He's a good ball user, and I feel like he's one of those guys who could have a really good debut. I think he's really set up himself this year in terms of his work he's put in preseason, the work he's put in the VFL performance-wise. He's dominating. He's been the best. He's been the top 5 players in most games in the whole ground, like both teams combined in the VFL. So I don't see why we can't. People go, "Oh, he's young," but what are we waiting for? What are we waiting for here? They're young as well, the Saints. They've got a few 18-year-olds in Caminiti and Filippo, and they've played every single game. So, and they're 5th. So I don't really know what the issue is about that. So I think Binnsy comes in for mine. He can play that kind of wing role, but he can also play a bit of half forward, half back. It really depends where we put Cotters. Because I thought, Cotters can really play really any position, can he? I like him ahead of the ball. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but I think Binns comes in, and I think it's tough. I added probably Charlie Curnow, Ed Curnow, and Ed Curnow and Zach Fisher. I think I'll put Ed in. For a certain role, maybe a Sinclair, or just come in as a midfielder. Probably need that mid, to be fair. I think Fisher is the sub.
Completely agree. That is exactly who I would bring in. The only player that I am questioning is Jackson Binns. Now, for this reason. So you've got Blake Acres, you've got Ollie Hollands, you've got Matt Cottrell, who are all wingers. We know Matt Cottrell can play in any position, and that's what he's been doing ever since Ollie Hollands was brought back in. He's playing more that half-forward wing role. With Jackson Binns coming into the side, with those 4 playing, could you, I know that you're going to bring in Jackson Binns, but my question to you is, do you think all of them playing together, maybe a change of positions will probably have to happen, do you think all of them together could work?
Yes, I think they do. I think I was thinking about it yesterday, actually, before bed. That's how much of a nuffy I am, Carlton nuffy, thinking about Carlton. I was saying, maybe hold off on Binns, but, you look at it and he deserves his role, but I think I think I like Cotters at that half forward role where he can push up at the contest. I think that's where we can get extras at the stoppage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's just something, he's got that running capacity to be able to run up and down the ground and kick goals too. He's been kicking goals as well. So I think if Binns comes in, he would be the winger. And I think Cotters would be half forward. Or you switch. You probably go either. To be honest with you, you could probably go Binns at half forward. I'm not really sure how they'll look at it, but I think he deserves it. And I think it's a perfect week to bring him in because obviously if you bring him in, then you got the Demons next week and maybe you play him again. So it'll be tough. It's a tough selection kind of meeting, I'd imagine, for Michael Voss and the coaching staff. But really, whatever they do, I back him in. And the team, obviously, we've got some massive outs, which is frustrating. But I back in the team. There's no excuses anymore. I'm done with excuses.
Yeah. If we want to play finals and if we want to be a top 8 side, there's no excuses. This is why you have midfield depth. This is why you have a squad of 40 or 45 because you need to bring in players that is ready-made for that situation. And this is why we need to rely on a guy like an Ed Kerno who we might actually need. So after hearing you speak, I think what I'll do is Adam Chura would be out, of course. Mitch McGovern would be out. Paddy Dow, of course, would be in. I reckon I'll bring in Ed Kerno.
Yep.
Zach Fisher as a sub.
Okay, so who's your ins totally? So it's Ed Kerno.
Sorry, Ed Kerno, Dow if he's classified as an in.
Yeah.
But he's not really classified as an in, so that's why, if it's ins, because we only need to bring in one player because Paddy Dow was sub last week.
Yeah.
If we're gonna, so that's why I would bring in Dow, Ed Kerno as an actual in, and because I don't want to play Jackson Binns as a sub. That's the one thing I don't want to do. So I reckon I'll play Zach Fisher as a sub.
He would be I'll tell you, he'd be the perfect sub, Jackson Binns.
But I reckon Zach Fisher would be the perfect sub as well.
Yeah. It's a tough one on Fisher. I just don't know. I don't know, but I feel like he's the perfect player in the way we're playing right now. That's the issue.
Who, Binns?
Fish.
Oh, okay,
Fish.
Fisher. Yeah.
I think Fish could play perfectly in this side in the fast footy, but I just don't know. His form earlier in the year was shocking, and he hasn't really been setting the world alight in the VFL, but it's sometimes tough. Sometimes blokes don't, sometimes they're better in the AFL system because they're playing around better players. But, I agree. Honestly, it comes out in 5 hours or so, so we'll somehow fucking Dom McHugh will be in those ins late in or something like that. So.
I've got to be honest, Davey. I wouldn't mind seeing that if I'm honest. Okay, so now we'll move on to, of course, the ground overview. We'll touch on our 4 key matchups for each line. But as we always do, we're going to touch on the back line first, and it's probably the most anticipated, matchup for the weekend. And we know that for the match, and I know that Wiedering has had a bit of trouble against a guy like Max King. And if Max King is brought in, I expect Jacob Wiedering to go straight to Max King, but we know how good Wiedering has been in the past few weeks. So there's no excuses. King's coming back in. I think Wiedering has to dominate this clash, this matchup. But David Boyd, Jacob Wiedering versus Max King, if it's going to happen, what do you think? How do you think this matchup will play out?
Yeah, another in against us, the Saints. I love bringing players back in. But for me, obviously, I think this matchup will be fine. I think Wieders the way he's playing. If he plays the way, I don't want to, jinx myself and King kick 7. But I think we've just got to really back him in and back the system in, the back 6 to really support each other. In terms of this matchup, I'd imagine if Tim Membry comes back in, I think he had 6 touches in the VFL, so I wouldn't mind him coming in, to be fair. But the thing with King and Membry and Hayes, they're all coming in. The only positive thing is that they might be underdone. They might be underdone, and the Saints might go, we have to play them because we've got, finals on the line. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a lot of pressure. I feel like in years past, we've had that issue as well, where you might force a Harry Mackay in at a certain point, and he might be a little bit underdone or whoever. I feel like that hurt us a little bit last year. I remember the Chera was a few games where he was really underdone and he struggled, and people started having a go at him. Yeah. But I think we just brought him in back too early. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'd imagine Max King will be ready. I think he's been training pretty well the last few weeks. So I'm not saying they're going to be underdone, but I'm just saying everyone's so worried about them coming in. that, they're coming in for AFL. They're playing Carlton here. We're not, they're not playing North Melbourne. They're playing Carlton. They're playing a really good back six. So, no, I really back him in. And obviously, Membry Hayes hasn't played a game in ages. I think he has had an ACL early last year. He played good footy at the start of last year. So, he'll be a good in for them because he can play that second ruck role and probably put Marshall up forward, which is dangerous in my opinion. I think when Marshall's up and about and he's in the forward 50, could really cause mismatches, and especially with our backline currently, it's probably not undersized, but I don't know. Like if you put Marshall and King, the Twin Towers, up, the forward 50, who's going to pick up who? You know what I mean? Like we're going to put Marchbank on Marshall, who's not undersized, but you know what I mean? Like it's not like we have Lewis Young and Wiedering. So I back him in, Pato. I really do.
Yeah. I do as well. A quick comment for, I guess, Jack Hayes, which is a guy that I think I do agree with you about. I don't think he's played since he's done that ACL. I think he had another injury because when I saw him play, I'm like, this guy's a freak.
Yeah,
I actually really like the way he played. So, and then when he did his ACL, I know that there was a lot of talk about if he was going to get a contract, and then I know that Brett Ratton, when he was the coach, reassured him and said, "You're going to get a contract. Don't you worry about that." So I guess it's good to see him, I guess, because also his number last time he played was 47 and now he's number 18. So a bit of a number change. I don't know if that's going to be a change of character, Duffy boy. But one more question about the back line. So we know how great Nick Newman has been, and I know that there's been a lot of talk this week, which is probably something that we've been wanting to kind of come out in the news, I guess, in the media, to give this guy the credit of how good he's been. But internally, we know how good he is. So there's two sides where like, you don't want to give him too much credit, but also we kind of love seeing how much credit he's getting nowadays. But Nick Newman, who does he go to? Because I know there's a Mitch Owens down there who is one player who's been fantastic this season. He's probably more of a key forward, but I don't think with King and Membry coming back in, maybe, I think Owens has to play as that mid forward. So whether it's an Owens or a Jack Higgins or even a Dan Butler, those probably three, who do you reckon Nick Newman would go to?
I think Mitch Owens is the perfect matchup for Newman. I think they're the same size. I think Owens is 6'2" or 6'3". I'd imagine Newman's very close to that. I think he's 6'2", so perfect matchup. I always get really caught off guard when Mitch Owens is isn't a small forward. When he first came to the league, I've actually met him once. He's a good mate of mine's, family friend. So I've met him once ages ago when he was like really young, like when he was 18, when he just got drafted or whatever. Good guy, by the way, Mitchy boy. So he's a good player too. Really, really good player. I think he should be definitely up there for rising star this year. But yeah, he really catches me off guard because he looks like he plays like a small forward, but he's 6'2" and he can take marks, and then he goes plays in the ruck. It's like, what's going? He's a really good asset for the Saints, and it's actually a shame they actually have him because he's a really, really good player, and he's going to be a star for them in the future. But you know Nick Newman, mate. He likes to get a job done. He likes a bit of chirp too, the Newy, so he won't let the young fella get away with it, I reckon.
Yeah, spot on. I know with Mitch Owens because he was a former Mentor and Grammar boy, and that's where I used to go for school. So he was 2 years younger than me, but his brother was in my year, so I actually had a few things. I mean, I wasn't really close to Mitch Owens, but I know that he was a very, very good player. Even in the school system, like even seeing him, like I think it was like year 10 when I actually saw him kind of come through the ranks of like the team that we were playing in, and he was like, you could kind of see how good he was straight away. But he's one of those players that when he was playing for Sandy Dragons, he was playing well, and then he kind of shot up straight away. So in that draft year, which happens a lot now, with I guess high draft picks where they're not so great, kind of going through the school system, and then as soon as they get to that draft year, they shoot up. So I know a guy like Owens is a big threat, but I completely agree. I think he's a player for the future, and I know that he's going to be a generational player. But we'll now move on to the midfield clash, and it's a bit of a different one. I don't think we've had this player in our midfield key matchup before, but Sam Doherty up against Brad Crouch. So Brad Crouch is having quite a good season this year. I don't know if he's quite all-Australian, but he's going to be very much around that mix because I think he's having quite an underrated season. If St Kilda have been a little bit better, well, I know that they're fifth on the ladder, but if they were just more consistent, I think Brad Crouch would very much be up there. But with this matchup, Daffy boy, I know that Sam Docherty is going to be in that midfield with a few outs this week with Chera and Walsh, of course. How do you see this matchup playing out?
Yeah, it's an interesting one with all our mids out. Obviously, it's another challenge for our coaching group, especially our midfield coach in Tim Clark and obviously Vossi as well, to really just see how we can get it done. And I think we can still get it done. Based on this matchup, first of all, I think Doc's the perfect midfielder to come in. I think I like when Doc's in the middle. There's something about it. He's got that grunt. He's got that. I don't know. He's a midfielder, really. He really should be a midfielder, but he's been off halfback for the last few years. Just due to us not having the lack of halfbacks, and now we have about 400 of them, so he doesn't need to be down. But yeah, no, Crouch has been good. I think he's definitely copped it over the years, him and his brother over the years, for being kind of that accumulator type midfielder, and it probably is fair enough. They were those guys that have 35 every week and not really have an impact on the game, but I feel like he is having an impact on the game this year for the Saints. He's been kicking goals. I think a few weeks ago or last week he had 30 and 3 or something. So yeah, it was a bit odd. And I think I was doing the stats for SEN a few weeks ago, and he had 17 tackles in a game. So I think that's how he plays, and he's that kind of grunt type of player. But now he's looking more outside. He's impacting more outside, which is massive for the Saints. But yeah, I think with that midfield, obviously you got Doc in there, you got Cripper in there, Hewitt in there. Ed Kernow, he's in. Cunningham, Fog will have some more time, I'd imagine. But yeah, I feel like their midfield is definitely not their strength, in my opinion. They've got some good players in there, but it's definitely not their main strength, in my opinion. I think they're decent, not terrible, but they've got some room for improvement there. Obviously, they've got Jack Steele and a few others running through there. Sometimes they have Sinclair, Gresham running through there, the future Blues. So it'll be interesting there. And I think if we win this battle, I think that if we have that toughness that we've been showing, it doesn't matter what personnel we have in there, we'll win the battle ultimately.
Yeah. You watch, Jade Gresham will have an absolute day out, and he'll pretty much be riding his 1.5 million contract next year to join the Navy Blues. Okay, so now we'll move on to the rucks, of course. I know that there's a few names that could potentially come back in for the St Kilda Saints as their second ruck, but we're going to stick with this one matchup, and it's going to be Mark Pitnet up against Rowan Marshall, who we've mentioned a few times throughout the episode. He's having some sort of a year. I know that he's going to very much be up there for All-Australian, other than probably a Timmy English and even maybe a Max Gawn, who's probably found some form the last few weeks. I think Rowan Marshall has to be up there for the All-Australian ruckman. But Daff, we're going to stick with this matchup, Mark Pitnet and Rowan Marshall, and we'll also touch on the second rucks as well. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, I think Marshall's a very modern type ruckman. He's not even that young. I thought he was much younger than he is. He's 29 or 28. So he didn't get drafted when he was 19. So he was a mature age pick through the VFL at North Ballarat. Not sure how I know that, but I'm a footy nuffy. But yeah, I think he's a really good ruckman. I think, like I said before, he's really damaging when he's going forward ahead of the ball. I think they did that too late, the Saints. I thought in the North Melbourne game, which unfortunately I don't know why I was watching that game, but in the first 3 quarters, they really struggled to score against North Melbourne, and they chucked him up forward for the first 5 minutes of the fourth, and he kicked 2 goals. So, and that really changed the game and ultimately won them the game. And but with Pitto and obviously big TDK, they struggled last week. So, it's going to be a tough matchup. And then obviously, like we said before, they've got some second rucks in there. I'd imagine it'd probably be Jack Hayes or maybe Cordy. I don't know if he's playing. I'm not sure. You could get Cordy as a defender. He can play probably both ends of the ground and also on the ruck. So I think it's a matter of us focusing on ourselves. And I want to see a big game from our 2 rucks, especially aerially, and cover that kind of gap we have with no Mackay up the ground.
Yep, completely spot on. But a question about, I guess, with Zane Cordy, because I know that he's been playing a lot. He's pretty much played the whole year for St Kilda, but he's been playing as that second ruck. And the question is from their end, and we know that Tom DeConning and Mark Pitnet are both playing because they're both listed on the ground from the extended squad. So they're both going to be playing. So it's 100% going to be Pitt and TDK up against Marshall and whoever, do you maybe risk a Jack Hayes playing because they're pretty much playing against two genuine ruckmen? And we know that Zane Cordy, if he was in the ruck against a guy like TDK or even a Pitt net to a stretch because he's been playing more as that second ruck, do you reckon Jack Hayes just has to come in to kind of fill the void for that second ruck from the Saints point of view?
Yeah, I think he has to. Well, obviously they've got Zach Jones out and they've got three bigs named in. So obviously they've got someone else to cover that Zach Jones kind of midfield role. So I'd imagine they'd have some more omissions, I'd imagine, in the side. So it's tough, but yeah, if they bring all three in, it will make their lineup look very tall.
Yes.
And that could be a bonus for us. So it really depends how it works out. But yeah, once again, I think, we can't worry about what they do. We've got to worry about what we do. And I think we really need to lift our game, especially in the rucks with aerial marking, in kick outs. When you get to 60 metres on the weekend against Collingwood, there was a few moments where they just needed to take a mark and just slow the game down, or, just reset from that position rather than have the ball hitting the deck 60 metres out from opposition goal. And you know how the Saints play. They love it on the deck and, quick. They're quick and fast. So I know we are too currently, but we just can't let them, play the way they want to play. We need to be stopping that. So, yeah.
Yep. Completely agree. Couldn't have said it any better there, Duffy Boy. And I know that it's a big threat, especially at Marvel Stadium against St Kilda. Yeah. We know how well they play there. But, of course, as you just said, the way that they play, their style of their quick movement, it's very much a danger at Marvel Stadium. So we'll now move on to our last matchup, which is, of course, Charlie Curnow up against Cal Wilkie in the forward line. I know there's a few other forwards down there that can really be a threat for St Kilda, but also their defense with a guy like Liam Soccer, who's come back into the side. He was dropped a couple of weeks ago, but of course, as a former Blue, he would like to have a second opportunity to kind of, show his worth, because I know that, of course, he played against Carlton earlier through the year. But from this matchup, Charlie Curnow and Cal Wilkie, we spoke about before we pressed record for this episode how valuable Cal Wilkie is. How do you see this matchup playing out? We know that Charlie Curnow is in fantastic form. How do you see this matchup playing out? But also some threats from their end as well.
Yeah, we were talking about it a lot, actually, pre-episode. And I think Wilkie's a lot different, a much different defender to Darcy Moore. Obviously, Darcy took on Curnow last week. And we always talk about Collingwood and the way their defenders like to attack even before they have the ball. You know what I mean? I think they look to attack before they mark it, and the way they defend is very attacking. So I think it's kind of opposite with the Saints. I think their defenders are very kind of, not basics, but more the fundamentals of defending. They're sticking on their man for 4 quarters. Like Wilkie's going to know he's got Curnow for 4 quarters, and he's going to have to stop Curnow. That's his role isn't to, Darcy Moore and start off attacks, attack, which he could do at times. But I think he'll be obviously on Curnow, and it's a tough task. Imagine your coach goes, "Yep, you're gonna have to pick up Charlie Curnow," but he's their best back currently. Obviously, Dougal Howard's out, who's definitely copped a lot of flack from St Kilda supporters over the last couple of months. He's out with an injury, so that might be a blessing in disguise for their supporters. But I'd imagine, then you look at Zane Cordy, he could probably play as that second key back, but then you go, gee, is he going to play on TDK, or is he going to play on, that's why these ruck, we go back to the ruck conversation. And when they're in that forward line, especially TDK, he's got to take it by the scruff of the neck and kick a couple goals.
Yeah.
Take a few big grabs. Because then it starts to worry their defenders, and they start focusing on him. And then there's guys like Jack Martin, there's Fogartys, there's Cunners, there's Cotters, there's Mids, there's Cripps. There's multiple goal scorers we have now in our under our sleeve, which is fantastic. You can't just focus on Charlie anymore. You got others, and then Charlie's been bringing other guys into the game, which has been fantastic to see in the last 6 weeks. And obviously, he kicked 6 straight last week, and I think Charlie's probably on for another bag this week.
Yeah, well, I completely agree. And I think another player that could maybe play that key defensive role for St Kilda, and I know that he's been playing a lot as the key back down there alongside Cal Wilkie, and that's Josh Battle. So I know that a Josh Battle, if Harry Mackay was playing, I reckon Cal Wilkie would go straight to Mackay because that's probably a little bit of a better matchup, but probably Battle would go straight to a Charlie Curnow with maybe a Zane Cordy as that intercept defender. But we know that it's quite funny to imagine Zane Cordy as the intercept defender for the St Kilda Football Club, that Daffy Boy. But of course it's a big threat with the Josh Battle and also a Cal Wilkie and as soon as a TDK goes down there as that key forward alongside Charlie Curnow, with also Jack Martin as that third tall, it's a pretty big problem for St Kilda because they would probably like to have Howard out there just to kind of fill the void. But it also helps them that imagine if Harry Mackay was playing this week, they would be pretty worried. So, but of course that is the last line that we'll touch on for the ground overview. And now we'll touch on probably the most anticipated, segment for the episode, and it's the match predictions. So, of course, Daffy Boy, very quickly, I need your best on ground, your point of difference, and your winner plus margin.
Yeah, so I've already got these in my head right now. Best on ground, Paddy Cripps. He's going to be on top of Jack Steele and kick a couple goals this week. I think Cripper, he's going to have it doesn't have to dominate. He could have a 20 or 25 touch game, but I think he's going to kick a couple of snags and put his flag down on his first final series, hopefully. But yeah, point of difference, Ollie Hollands for mine. I think he's coming into his own. I thought he was great last week, and I think he can really match up well against their wingers. They've got a few guys. I think Nazaya Wangani Malira, I reckon he's arguably their best player right now. He's been having 30 plus every single week. He's probably their best. I'd imagine he's probably been almost their BNF this season, which shows how good he is. He's 20 years old, so. We the battle of the young guys, and obviously going to watch those guys too. But talking about forwards and defenders and halfbacks, I think Sinclair and Wangani Malira are those guys who can rebound off D50. So they're going to be important players to pick up, and winner plus margin. I got the Blues by 12 points.
12.
Yeah,
like it. Okay, well. So I'm going to touch on my point of difference first, then my best on ground, then my winner plus margin. So my point of difference, I've gone the guy who's going to get his opportunity in the best 22, and it's Paddy Dow. So Paddy Dow, I think, is going to be the point of difference because it's another chance for him to kind of show what he's got, and it's against a side that is interested in him to maybe come to the club next year. So whether he wants to try and have an opportunity where he's finally in that best 22 in that midfield to really have a standout game and maybe stay at the club, or it lifts his trade value. So lifts his trade value. But of course, Paddy Dow for point of difference. I've gone best on ground. I've gone Paddy Cripps as well. I was going to say Charlie Curnow, but I think Paddy Cripps, he's not had that game yet, has he? He's not had that dominant game, and I don't think he needs to. But I think it's the game where he hasn't really performed overly well against St Kilda in the past. Like he's not really. I know that he's had a few games because he's just that good, but it's been a side that he hasn't dominated against consistently. So I think he would like to get on the scoreboard and get a lot of touches at Marvel Stadium against St Kilda. But winner plus margin, once again, I've gone big. 41 points to the Carlton Football Club. 41 points to the Carlton Football Club. And tell me why this can't happen, Daffy Boys. So we are playing against the Saints. They are fifth on the ladder. We know. Their percentage is not great. Against the great sides, especially at Marvel, our percentage would be pretty unbelievable of how we played at Marvel in the past 6 or 7 weeks. We called it against Port Adelaide. I mean, I know that I chose quite a large margin. I think you chose Carlton to win against Port Adelaide as well, but my margin was quite big and it ended up being 50 points or whatever it was. So tell me why this cannot happen, Daffy Boy.
No, I agree. I agree. I don't know why we can't, put them to bed and put a big margin on them. But yeah, I'm not cautious, but I'm just, I think it's going to be hard. I don't know. I think we're a system-based team now, so why can't we beat them by 40? There's no reason why. But I'll keep my tip at 12, but I'll be very happy if it's 40 plus. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree, but I think now I'm a little bit nervous that I've gone that big, so I'm a little bit worried. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to stick with my tip. I know that if we end up losing by 41 points, I will pretty much put my hand up and say, yep, I was wrong. But of course, that is my tip, 41 points to the Carlton Football Club. But of course, that is the last segment that we'll touch on, as we always do. But Daffy Boy, is there anything else you want to touch on for the episode before we wrap it up?
No, I think it's almost sold out this Sunday. Obviously, it's an away game, so get down. I'd imagine there'll be more Carlton supporters than them because they don't show up. So get around it, get around the Blue Boys because the crowd makes a massive difference. I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference when we're up and about. That, like we say, the Marvel Stadium closes in for opposition teams when we're up and about. It's their home game, righto. You know, they've got 2,000 members, so we'll see you there at Marvel Stadium and we'll knock off the Saints finally, once and fucking for all.
Yep. it's a team that we've actually come to kind of hate. But no, they're actually annoying. They're actually annoying. Yeah. Mate, they grind my gears, mate. They're stupid, the knock, and I don't think I was here for the preview episode for Carlton St Kilda. I think I was still in America. So this is the time. Oh, mate, I'm so glad I wasn't previewing or reviewing that. But I was in America and I was like, God, if I was doing the preview, I would rip so much into the Saints supporters because I actually hate them. They reckon they are so irrelevant, and literally, I reckon if there was one irrelevant team in the competition right now, it is the St Kilda Football Club. or if they're relevant, the reason why they're relevant is because they're so irrelevant that they're relevant. Literally. So, a bit of a shout out to the Saints supporters, of course, but that is of course the last thing we'll kind of touch on. But I just don't like the whole knock thing. I'm kind of glad that it's kind of silenced the past few weeks because now they're not winning as many games. So, but of course, to all of these, to the viewers and their listeners out there who just listened to this episode, and of course has listened to every episode throughout the year from us, make sure to like and subscribe on all the platforms we're on, all the podcast platforms, but also on YouTube as well, and also on our social platforms as well. I know it's something that we're trying to work a lot on for the social platforms to try and gain our audience, but also try and to give our opinions on the club, and also wanting to hear from all the fans out there. But it's an absolute pleasure doing an episode every single week, twice a week actually, for the preview and review for every single game. And to you, Daffy Boy, and to all the Blue Baggers out there, up the Baggers!